Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar on maximising your paid strategy in 2025. I'm sure many of you listening today will be putting a significant chunk of your budget into channels like Meta, Google and TikTok, and any improvement across these channels will have a significant business impact. And I'm quietly confident that the insights that we're going to be sharing with you today will help you do just that. So my name is Simeon Atkins. I'm the lead product marketing manager here at Mention Me. I've been with Mention Me for just under 3 years, and I'm going to be talking you through how you can utilize the referral data being generated through your program to drive some serious results across your paid channels. And joining me today is Nimala Gupta, Director of Paid Media at Incubator. Nimala, do you want to briefly introduce yourself, Incubator, and what you're going to be talking about today?
Yes, great. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Nirmala and I'm the Director of Paid Media at Incubator. Today I'll be talking through how the paid media industry has evolved and some recommendations on how to evolve your paid media strategy.
Perfect. So as we were touching on there, following today's session, you'll come away with 3 key insights. The 2025 trends shaping the paid search and social media landscape that you need to be aware of, actionable strategies to really get your paid campaigns firing, and how you can attract and convert higher quality customers using your referral data. So Nimala, without further ado, over to you.
Great, thank you. So today I'll talk through how the paid media industry has evolved, key predictions for 2025 and beyond, as well as best practices for setting campaigns up for paid media success. AI has transformed the industry from being focused on the media to being focused on what feeds the media. With automated campaign types being launched by Google and Meta, what feeds the campaigns becomes more important than the platform optimizations itself. This means it is extremely important to have the best analytics, data, creative, and tech in place to fuel your paid media strategy. And I predict these changes will continue into 2025. AI and automation is my biggest pillar here in the slide because this will continue to be the biggest change that occurs in the industry, with changes within Meta and Google campaigns when it comes to automated campaign types, the tools that become available to us and the impact this has on user behavior. For example, we're already seeing an increased use of things like ChatGPT for researching information and involvement in a user's purchasing journey, and seeing Google being used more as a shopping engine. Speaking of changes in the way people shop and browse through ChatGPT, our customers are also interacting with more than one channel on a daily basis for researching, browsing, shopping. How people search is changing with ChatGPT, voice search, and Google Lens. So we're seeing a lot of those changes that AI and automation is driving in user behavior. There will also be an increased focus on measurement, which values your marketing efforts more accurately, and become increasingly more important which becomes even increasingly more important with privacy changes. The results that we've seen through things like MMM and changes in user behavior will result in changes in the channel mix. So what that means is we'll see an increase in people using paid social as a channel within their digital marketing efforts, the importance of video in building memory for our customers, and as a result, it's important to create consumer-centric paid media strategies in line with all these changes that we're likely to see in the coming year. So what are the questions that you must answer when creating your consumer-first digital strategy? You should really work towards what are your true paid media goals. So by this, I mean, what is the business value that you are trying to optimize to? Understanding your customer. So who is your customer? How do they behave online? How can you reach them online? What channels do they engage with? How do they browse? How do they purchase? What does that user journey look like? And finally, how can you create an experience that engages them through the purchase journey to eventually convert? I spoke about the 4 areas that need to feed into the media earlier on into this presentation. To talk through the first one is analytics. It's really important to define your goals and measure success accurately. By defining your goal, I mean ensuring you are optimizing to the true value of your business and not just the immediate purchase revenue. With AI-generated campaigns, what you feed as a goal impacts the results that you get. So for example, as you can see in the slide, not optimizing to business lifetime value can result in under or overspend in certain areas, as the long-term value of the customer is not taken into consideration. It's important to invest in a measurement framework which aids effective decision-making and is an accurate measure of success, as without this, you may be undervaluing certain channels in certain areas and therefore making inaccurate investment decisions on how you should be spending your budget across the different areas. So it's really important to get these things right to make sure you're optimizing towards the correct data and therefore getting the results that you're looking to achieve more from a long-term perspective. Data that feeds the campaigns is extremely important. So it's really important that the data that fuels the campaigns and the decision making is using as strong foundations as possible. You can use a CDP to build actionable customer profiles and understand how customers behave and plan your media around your goals and customer profiles. It's extremely important to plan your media and make sure that they are aligned to the goals that you have as a business, as well as who you are trying to target. You'll see differences in how your target audiences interact with different channels across the web. So it's important for all those considerations to be taken into account when you're planning your media. You need to make sure you're feeding your campaign with data signals such as margin, stock, seasonality, and trends, and also make sure you're enriching your feed to maximize value from products such as PMax. A technology that we have built as incubator internally is ePMax, which essentially prioritizes your products in PMax through a scoring system to ensure that you're always optimizing towards your highest performing products based on a number of factors that are important to your business, which include things like site-wide performance, margin, product page performance, price competitivity, and actually making sure you're prioritizing your top products based on all these factors that are important to your business is extremely important. Creative should be at the heart of any paid media strategy. 56% of the brand sales uplift comes for digital advertising can be attributed to creative. And your creative strategy should be influenced by many factors: market insights, customer journey, audience, environment, objectives. It's really important to tailor your creative strategy to your audience at each stage of the funnel and ensure your creative is fit for purpose and customized for each placement. And in addition to that, it's also important that the creative is refreshed every 2 to 3 weeks to make sure that your users are seeing fresh and new content that they can engage with. And finally, utilizing technology to maximize effectiveness. There's great technology out there which you should be using as part of your paid media strategy to make sure you're accelerating the growth of your paid media campaigns. We have personally built our own seamless search technology to address the age-old challenge of how incremental is investment into paid search activity. And this tool focuses on maximizing total search performance, ensuring every penny spent on paid search is incremental, and it essentially works as a bid strategy, which takes into account organic performance. There's also click fraud softwares out there which help to reduce wasted spend, and a number of scripts and tools that you should be making use of to make sure that you're fueling your campaigns and utilizing the best AI and technology tools where you can. To summarize, the 5 key takeaways from today are: understand your customer and how to find them online. You should look to build customer profiles and use the CDP to do this. Have a strong measurement framework in place to understand the success of your investment strategies and optimize to the true business goals, such as lifetime value. Reclaim AI through ensuring strong data foundations that fuel automated campaigns. Tailor your creative strategy to your audience, wider strategy and platform, and utilize the best-in-class technology to fuel the success of your campaigns. So these are the 5 key takeaways that I want to make sure that I get across today to really make sure that you're maximizing your performance for paid media and maximizing the success of your advertising. Thank you.
Thanks, Nimala. That was really, really interesting. Just before we move on, there's a couple of points that I want to come back to, because I think they really will fit the referral piece that we're talking about in a minute. You were talking about the importance of customer lifetime value, and something that we've discussed is the importance of looking just beyond the first purchase that your customers are making when you're assessing the value of the customers that you're targeting online, and having a bit more of a holistic approach when it comes to customer lifetime value. And then you were talking about the different signals there as well. And again, you've mentioned to me before around this importance of almost taking back control of your campaigns by utilizing more signals and maybe going beyond some of the traditional signals that you might be currently using.
Yeah, absolutely. Fully agree with that.
Perfect. Good. Well, with that at the top of our mind, let's look at how you can utilize the referral data that you're generating from your program to start optimizing your paid channels. And I want to start with this quote from one of our customers, Wild. So we're sitting on a lot of first-party data at the moment, but given the current privacy concerns, we've lost a lot of our key signals that we used to rely on, and that's where Mention Me comes in. And I think that this really speaks to what Nimla was just saying there around kind of the importance of getting more signals to make sure that you're reclaiming control of your campaigns, particularly as Woot is saying here, if some of those signals that you've been traditionally losing are being lost to things like privacy concerns and other updates that are going on these channels as well. Now, I know I'm going to be preaching to the choir a little bit when I'm talking about the value of your referred customers. On average, they're going to spend more, they're going to buy more often, and they're going to bring more friends and family in through the front door as well. And again, I think that goes to Nimla's point earlier around customer lifetime value and looking at it from a more holistic point of view rather than just first purchasing. So obviously your referrers are going to be spending themselves, but also bring in high value customers as well that will go on and spend themselves. So you could argue what better profile of customers to be targeting on these channels than ones that look like your referrers. And this is where Audience Builder comes in. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Audience Builder, it allows you to seamlessly integrate your referral data into Meta, Google, and TikTok and start creating high converting audience lists based on the profile of your biggest referrers. So it is super quick and super easy to set up. And just to show how quick and easy it is to set up, we've got this very short demo video which goes through some of the basics. So once you're in the platform, you'll go to the Connections Hub, go into Audience Builder, and then you'll choose the channel that you want to build the list for. In this example here, we're using TikTok, which we launched a few weeks ago to go alongside Meta and Google. So the first step will just be going through the standard authentication process that you'd need to do with any of these channels just to get everything ready. And then once you've done that, you'll come back to the platform, and this is where you can start to build your lists. And essentially what you'll have is a group of different profiles of referrers that you can build your list around with different characteristics. And I think what I would say here is it's a bit of a test and learn phase in terms of finding out which one of those lists is going to be the most impactful on your paid channels. And then once you've accepted the terms and conditions, you're ready to go. So within, under a minute's time, you can get Audience Builder set up and start building the lists and start targeting people that look like your best referrers on these platforms. And to help to bring it to life a little bit more, I just want to go through a couple of customer success stories that we've had. And I want to start with Moss here. So I'm sure like many of you listening today, Moss has historically struggled to generate a meaningful ROAS, particularly in such a competitive market. Their main channel that they use is Meta, and around 50% of their paid social budget goes into Meta. So they knew that any uptick in performance here would have a significant business impact. Moss has been working with us since 2021. And in that time, 20% of their referrals convert into new customers, and referred customers on average have a 14% higher order volume. So a very, very valuable cohort of customers, which got Moss thinking that there's surely more that we can do with this outside of just the standard referral program. And with such a big focus on Meta, what they decided to do was create lookalike audiences based on the profile of their referrers that they could target on Meta. And it had great success for them. So they were able to drive a 90% increase in ROAS, a 275% increase in conversion rates, and then a 61% increase in conversions overall. And I really love this quote from Hamish here, a bit of a penny drop moment for them. The data proves how valuable our advocates are, and we knew that there was more that we should be doing to capitalize on that. And I think Audience Builder is one of those ways that you can start to utilize these really valuable cohorts and start to drive value outside of your standard referral program. And then the second success story that we've got here is for HMV. So one of HMV's key priorities at the moment is driving newsletter signups. Now, obviously, being such a well-known high street brand, it can be a bit of a double-edged sword sometimes. They've obviously got a lot of clout in the market, but it does mean that it does become particularly hard to find net new customers, particularly for things like newsletter signups. And then from a paid social perspective, this kind of had two problematic scenarios. Either people being targeted that were already subscribers, or their CPL would explode and become very volatile when they were excluding customers from their mailing list because it was going after such a niche audience. And so what they did is they started to use Audience Builder, and with Audience Builder, they've been able to add a new buying signal to their meta targeting. So after they exclude customers already on their mailing list, they can then add another criteria, which then allows them to find customers with the same profile as their biggest referrers. And similar to Moss, they did this because on average, referred customers for them have a 42% higher purchase rate in the first 6 months than non-referred customers. And we can see the results here again, a 60% reduction in meta cost, which was really, really significant for them, a 9x ROAS, and then 90 million impressions generated. And I think we can all appreciate on the call that when we're considering the cost of these channels, it's not just the upfront cost, but it's also the way that these costs can fluctuate month over month, which makes it really difficult to predict how much budget that you need to put into these channels and obviously making that sustainable, which is why I really love this quote from Connor, which is saying that, you know, around the success that they've had, not only have our costs come down, but they've really stabilized for over a year now. And I think that obviously just makes, when you're planning and putting these processes in place, that just makes things a lot more easier and a lot more straightforward. Just before we hop into the Q&A, Nimala, I'd be interested to get your thoughts on some of the things that we've spoken about there around the referral data and maybe linking that back to some of the points that you were making earlier around best practice when it comes to paid media strategies this year.
Yes, absolutely. So as I mentioned when I went through my presentation, knowing your audience and knowing how to find them and target them becomes increasingly important with all the changes that are happening in the industry. And I think this tool's great in doing that, and also finding those customers that are high value to a client's business. So that's super important. Therefore, it's a very useful tool to have.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll go into the Q&A. We've got a couple of questions that have come in already, so we can get started with those. Let's just start with this one here. So this one looks like it's one for you, Nimala. What advice would you give to help better track and attribute TikTok ad performance? This is something that I've heard quite a lot, actually, and maybe one of the potential barriers to people utilizing TikTok more.
That's a great question. Thanks for asking that. One of the biggest challenges with TikTok is around measurement and how to better track performance when it comes to TikTok. And what we found is the best way to be able to measure this is through a solution like an MMM. And there's also measurement platforms out there with the likes of Triple and Phosphor, and investing in some of those should give a more accurate picture of how your TikTok ads are performing and how you can attribute more performance to those. It depends on obviously these platforms, and especially MMM is quite expensive to implement. So that does pose a challenge. There are metrics which are tracked directly in TikTok platforms. However, to get a real true picture, I would suggest investing in some of those measurement solutions like MMM.
And maybe just to kind of follow up on that, what are maybe some of the other concerns that you hear people having around TikTok, and maybe what might be stopping them from investing as much in Meta and Google, which I think particularly across our customer base, we're seeing they're still the primary channels that people are investing in, which you kind of think with TikTok being such a big potential for reaching customers, you probably see maybe more customers focusing on that. But maybe what are some of the other barriers there? Yeah,
sure. I think measurements are definitely a big one. And then you also have the data privacy concerns that people might have when it comes to TikTok. And then also when it comes to TikTok, it's traditionally a younger demographic. So depending on the target customer that users have, they might want to utilize other platforms more rather than TikTok. But it really, to be honest, depends on your target customer, what your main goals are. And then that's when you can start to think about what other channels that should be a part of that channel mix, and make sure you're planning your media around those goals. So TikTok is still a very valuable channel in driving awareness and driving reach amongst the customers that it's most relevant for. And then it's just about being able to measure it correctly.
And then the last one on this, actually, something that I just thought of. Do you think that maybe if a lot of businesses are still focusing very much primarily on Meta and Google, there could be an opportunity to capitalize on TikTok? Like, maybe people might think that everyone's already doing it, but if there are people that are still holding back a little bit, I mean, again, depends on who you're targeting, etc. But could there be potentially an opportunity there if people's focuses are still very much on Meta and Google?
Yeah, absolutely. Something I mentioned in my presentation as well was around how I expect the industry to change this year. And I think those are some of the changes that will happen as people get results from the detailed measurement strategies like MMM. There will be more of a shift into people understanding the value of these platforms that aren't as easy to track. And therefore, people will be investing more into some of these channels. So I do expect to see that channel mix and the investment into these areas increase over time as well.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, and then the second question we've got here is, can you briefly explain the different types of lists that you can build through Audience Builder? So I did go through those pretty quickly in the demo, so I'll maybe go through them a little bit more now. So yeah, you've got different options based on different profiles of your referrers. So just to give you some examples of the lists, you've got one which is called your highest value successful referrers. So essentially, they're the ones that are generating the most revenue when you're combining their own spend plus the spend of their referrers. So what we would call high ECR or high extended customer revenue customers. You've got existing customers who have successfully referred a friend. You've got referred customers who have placed their first order. So I think what it comes down to, as I sort of said briefly, is a bit of a test and learn. So trying out different lists and seeing which ones have the most impact through those paid channels. And I think also some of it will be dictated slightly by the size of the list as well. So some of those lists might have more people in that cohort than others. So you might want to prioritize the ones that obviously have a bigger cohort as well. But if you're not sure and you want to try out, what I would say is contact your CSM or contact support, and we can talk you through that in a little bit more detail and maybe make some recommendations there too. Okay, I think we've gone through all the questions. What I will say is if anything comes up that you want to ask that you think retrospectively, again, just contact your CSM or contact support@mentionme.com, and we can go through those with you. But I would say in terms of next steps, if you've already got Audience Builder and you've been using it, I would definitely encourage you to log in and start building your next list, particularly if you haven't tried TikTok and that's a channel that you're wanting to try. Again, we launched that a few weeks ago, so I definitely recommend starting and building a list there. If you don't currently have access, or if you're unsure if you have access because you haven't looked yet, then I would advise reaching out to your account manager or contacting support@mentionme.com. And we can help you out with that. And if you haven't got access, we can talk about how you can potentially get access with that as well. So I hope that was a useful session for you. I hope you've got some good trends there that you can take away into your business, and also a better understanding of how you can further utilize the referral data that you've got at your fingertips there to help with other channels like Meta, Google, and TikTok. So thank you very much for joining, and we'll see you next time.